welcome to a new video on the channel. Today we are going to go through my mid-August reading update. It's hopefully going to be short because I only have 5 books to talk about, so without any more rambling, let's get straight into it. The first book that I completed this month so far is The Isle of the Gods by Amy Kaufman. This is my first time reading something by this author, and this is a YA fantasy set at sea, and has a few different elements going on with gods, obviously, in the title. The bare bones of it is that 3 unlikely people get caught up working together to get the Prince of Eleanor to the Isle of the Gods so he can make his sacrifice in time, and then there are other characters that are trying to stop that so they can bring on war between their kingdoms or regions. And these 3 unlikely friends. One is the one that you see on the cover. She is Sally, and the daughter of a merchant, and she wants to show herself as more than just someone who can swab decks. She's actually supposed to inherit the ship 𝓕𝓲𝓷𝓭, and is frustrated that she has yet to really do anything of importance on the ship, and obviously is thrust deep into leading the way very quickly. And then you have a scholar who was planning to go to sort of like a region where it's all about knowledge and learning, like a big university on an island of its own. I think that's what it was. Very much so wants to learn everything and anything and get away from the people that have bullied him through his youth, and just do more with his life than be the son of a lord. And then you have the prince, who obviously has to do a sacrifice and everyone thinks is pointless. He himself also believes that he has little to offer to the world except for his magical ability. I did find the magic system in this really interesting. It works with elements, so if you give a offering to the elements, say water for example, and then you charm them a little bit with your personality, they will work with you to perhaps make the boat that they're on, the ship, go through the water faster, things like that. Fire can be amplified or go out if you give offerings and coax them, that they're the more notorious spirits or sprites. So I thought that side of the magic in this book was quite well done, but I do feel like it needed to have a bit more on page time rather than just be explained. I would like to have seen more of it happen. Also, I do feel like the romance subplot to this book really didn't need to be added. Whilst I'm not like completely against it, and I kind of liked that this happened, I could have just read this as 3 people becoming friends and like needing to rely on each other to survive, and all the nuances that came with being strangers and then being thrust into deadly affairs and having to look out for each other's back. I thought that would have been way more interesting than adding a romance subplot in there. And also, I was really intrigued by another character in this world who unfortunately got stuck on the wrong side and couldn't break away. He was trying to be good, and everything that happened on the villainous side repulsed him, but he felt like he had some sort of commitment to stay there, and I felt that was really interesting. However, overall, I found this to be quite boring and drag out. The middle portion of this book is exceptionally dry, and not a lot happens in a way that prolongs the story, progresses the story, and it did feel very challenging to get through. That is why it took me quite some time. I started in July, the middle of July, and I finished this on the 2nd of August. So definitely not one that I got through very quick. I like books set on sea, but this one just wasn't for me. The next book I finished was an audiobook, and it was another one set at sea. It is All the Stars and Teeth by Adelaide Grace, and it is book 1 in that series. I listened to this as an audiobook, and this was my first time reading anything else other than Belladonna by this author. And I wanted to give this a go because I really enjoyed Belladonna. These two worlds are exceptionally different though. Whilst there are some similar tropes and the romance aspect is very well done, which I expected after Belladonna, I enjoyed this one. I gave it 3.5 stars, but it wasn't as enjoyable as I was expecting, and I felt a little bit let down. It is obviously a YA fantasy, so there is a YA tone to the main characters, and this follows a princess who is supposed to be the savior of her people, again set with like multiple kingdoms or regions, and her kingdom is like the top. It like rules over everyone, and she's led to believe since a young lady that her role is to take over the leading 𝓤𝓮𝓴 for her kingdom so she can protect her people, and that the magic power that they all have, they should only be able to practice one, because if they don't, their souls will rot. And obviously she has been lied to a lot of her life, and a lot of her experiences are quite sheltered and intentionally kept in the dark. And with something that goes wrong at her ceremony of to be accepted by her people to become the 𝓤𝓮𝓴, she escapes before getting slaughtered, and goes on a journey to try and resolve some tensions that are happening in other areas, and hopes that her people, when she returns, will accept her. And that is a really interesting journey she went on. She again has some friends that come on with her fiance that she is what is it? It's not by choice. What is it? Arranged marriage. He comes along not by choice, but she is grateful towards the end that he's there. And also the person that broke her out of jail is a pirate. So those two are there with her for most of the journey, and then they also are joined by a very fun mermaid. I really like that character. The characterization is okay, and the storyline is also okay, and I do find the further you get into the book and the more of the lore that you learn and the secrets are unraveled, the more interesting it gets. But the first 40 to 50% of the book, I can't say that I was like completely invested in. I did find myself thinking about DNFing a couple of times, but I continued on, and I am glad that I did, but I'm not sure I want to continue the series. I know it's a duology, so there's only one more book to go, but I'm not like feeling the pull to just instantly go pick it up. Maybe in the future I will, but for now I'm just happy that I read it. It was okay. I enjoyed some of it, and whilst it was predictable at the end, it was a satisfactory wrap up. The next book I'm going to talk about is one of the worst reads of the year. I've only got, I think, one or two other 2-star ratings on my list, and this was one that I was really excited for. This was the book club read for To Whatever End this month for August, and wow, did we all not enjoy this. I read Luminous last month by this author to prepare to kind of get an idea of what I was expecting from this author, and having some more thought about it, I can see how things that I didn't enjoy in Luminous were also present in this, and I just think that perhaps this author isn't for me. But wow, did I not enjoy this. I have a lot of tabs though along the side here. Oh, you can't really see. Not too many, but more than enough for a book that I didn't enjoy. And this follows 𝓕𝓲, and she essentially lives in a cult. That's how I found. She has grown up on an island that is isolated from the rest of the world and led to believe many things about the outsiders, and that it is her job to protect those who live on 𝓤𝓮, the island with her, from outsiders. And so she is 17 and is now having to do a year of being a watcher, which essentially means that she watches the outskirts of the island, and if any outsiders come, she is expected to kill. And there is also a magic system in this book where they sing, and their singing has an ability to protect and do multiple things. And there is a magical forest that's deadly, and also a poisonous lake involved in this. And finally, there's also people that are born in 𝓤𝓲 who are born what they call voiceless, meaning they don't have the ability to sing their magic, and therefore are sent out at the age of 12 with no idea of whether they will survive or not to the outside world, because they don't belong in 𝓤𝓲. So that is the sort of basis of this world. And then of course 𝓤𝓲 meets an outsider, and her perspective of everything changes. Also, there are secrets that are being kept from her, and she learns more along the way that what is happening on 𝓤𝓲 isn't as great as everyone thinks it to be. So I do feel like the whole magical forest and spooky, mysterious vibes are quite commonplace in fantasies these days. I can think of Spells for Forgetting as another one, but much like that one, this is a book that's supposed to be magical and deadly, and while there is danger involved, I do feel like this book made no sense magic-wise. There is a magic system with the singing, but you never learn why and how it works and what they really do with it, aside from what you get told. And the whole reason that they stayed away from outsiders was because of the singing. And yet, without giving too many spoilers, there is a possibility to exist without the island, and I don't understand how the magic system works without it. I've spent a lot of time with the question, why? Why is this happening? Why did this happen? Why did this person do this? And there's never any explanation, and that is the main reason why I gave this 2 stars. Everything is very convenient, so things that will be brought up as a question will be answered 100 pages later, and it'll be so vague or like just not satisfactory an answer enough that I was just so angry and bored and frustrated by this book. 𝓤𝓲 and the other main character, God, what is his name? I've forgotten. Jaron, I think his name is. Their storyline is obviously a romantic one, and I had no interest in the romance at all. They just are together because of forced proximity, and even then it feels very shallow and there's no depth, there's no like really learning about it. They spend hours talking to each other, but you don't get told apart from they spent hours talking to each other, if that makes sense. So I do feel like this was really lazily put together in the sense of questions aren't answered and there's not enough foundation to carry on. I can understand where some people would really enjoy this, but for me, I did not at all, and so I gave it 2 stars. The next book I finished was an e-arc, and it is Songs of Lost by Nicole Bailey. This is book 3 in the Sirens Call series. I have read Songs of Vice and Songs of Sacrament this year and left reviews up on the channel. Check out the playlist if you're really interested. This book I've given, for fair warning for the others, I've given 4 stars to, both the first and second book, and this one unfortunately I gave 3.5 stars to. I just felt like the world is getting a little bit cumbersome. Whilst there was some really good development with some characters, this is another one where there is multi-perspective or point of view, and I really enjoyed the fact that things that were angsty in book 2 had a bit more room to be resolved in book 3 with Lennox, who's my favourite character, and also Sean. I hope I'm saying his name right. I'm really happy their dynamic was resolved. However, as soon as that's sort of like the danger or the angst is like resolved here, then there's another big dramatic storyline, and then people are like quickly dying off or going in some direction that seems really wildly like dramatic. I really enjoy this author, and I do think she has great potential with her world, and she does a great amount of research. I really enjoy the fact that this has Indian cultural aspects and heritage in it, which is really fantastic because I don't see that a lot in fantasy, and the main characters are really interesting. But I just am finding that especially the last quarter of this book, it was very dramatic, and the pacing suddenly went from 0 to 100. And I know that's gearing up for the book 4 and everything that's about to happen, and I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt that the book 4 will wrap everything up nicely. But I just feel like for what happened in this book, it was either dragged out, there was a lot put in here that could have been done in a different way. I still enjoyed myself. I still am interested in these characters. But yeah, I just feel like the dramatic turns at the end remind me of how that happened in her last series, and I wasn't very impressed with that either. So perhaps that is just how this author likes to do that. I'm not sure. But I am definitely going to read book 4, and like I said, I gave it 3.5 stars. I still enjoyed myself. It just wasn't as great as book 1 and 2. And then the final book I'm going to talk about is one that I really enjoyed. I listened to it, but I have a physical copy of it. I've just been really busy, so audiobooks, if I can find it, I'll listen to them and really enjoy it that way. So this is With a Girl by Rachel Lynn Solomon, and I gave it 4 stars. This follows Ari, and she is a meteorologist. She does the weather on a news channel, and she works alongside some very volatile people, as well as some really sweet people. So essentially, Ari is tired of her current working environment. She is under a lady who was once her idol, and I think to a point you can still say she is, and she's also her boss. But her boss is also the ex-wife of the main guy behind the scenes. I don't think he's the CEO, but he's like really up there in management, and they had a messy divorce 5 years ago, and their workplace environment is toxic, and Ari has had enough. And she's joined by a sports reporter, or like he covers some sports on the channel as well, and he says as a joke when they're at a bar getting drunk because they've had the most miserable experience under their bosses, we should try and get them back together. And so they come up with a plan to bring their bosses together, and it's really adorable, all the things that they go through, and obviously along the way they fall in love. Now, I really enjoyed this even with the predictable storyline, because one thing I had noticed about this book is that Russell, who's the main male character, is described to be big. He used to play hockey when he was in high school. He's a single dad. He became a single dad quite young, when he was still in high school actually, and is a great dad. And he's got a dad bod, I suppose you want to put it. He's a bit soft around the edges, and he's insecure about that. And he hasn't been with anyone in the last 6 years, I think it is. And then Ari has depression, and she was engaged up until recent times, when her partner discovered that she had been on depression medication this whole time, and realized that she was actually keeping a lot from him, and wished that she would open up and share more of herself, but she felt like she couldn't. Like, she has to be this sunny, happy-go-lucky kind of person, because otherwise her depression will overwhelm her. So the conversations in this book were really interesting around depression and learning to love yourself for who you are. And I really enjoyed the romance because it's well paced. I felt like Russell and Ari had chemistry from the beginning, but they take their time, and it's really endearing to see how situations that they thought they were using to bring their bosses together actually help them come together. I really felt like this was quite a cute read, and I highly recommend it to anyone who enjoys romances and just looking for different types of leading characters. He's not 6'4" and an Adonis and have abs for days, and she's not some meek person who can't do anything for herself. She's actually quite independent and wants to do everything that's right, and obviously is trying to make things better for everyone around her, but also has a lot of depth to her as well and a lot of learning to do. So I really recommend this if you would enjoy something like that. And that is all the books that I have read so far. I am quickly going to show you the books that I'm still reading. I have one that I haven't picked up for about a month, so I'm not going to add that in here. But I do have The Righteous by 𝓤𝓲𝓷𝓭. I read The Damned last month, and I am on, I think I'm 50% in. I'm on page 192. This has been better than I expected. I was worried that I wasn't going to enjoy this, and I'm still a bit gutted about how the world has gone, but it's still enjoyable. I was meant to finish this a few days ago, but I've had something that's come up, and that's why I'm behind in my reading. And yeah, hopefully I can finish this in the next couple of days. I've got it sectioned out for 3 more days, but maybe I'll get it done in 2, I'm not sure. And then the other book that I'm reading, if I don't knock everything down off my desk, is Business or Pleasure by Rachel Lynn Solomon. I'm in a Solomon mood. I was actually hoping to get to the X talk before picking this one up because it's the other adult book that I haven't read by this author. And I've only read day 1's worth. We are reading this for the romance book club that I belong to. And the way that I laughed last night, I had tears streaming down my face. I had to keep putting the book down because I don't know what was near my eyes, but because of all the tears and the laughter, they were stinging. So I was just having a moment with this book. This follows some really interesting people, and essentially the story is about how they had a one-night stand that was so horrifically bad, and that's why I was laughing. And she teaches him how to do better in bed, and she's a ghostwriter. So this one is really up my alley. I'm really enjoying it already, and I'm hopeful that both of these books will bring up the score for the month, because right now we're looking pretty meek with only 1 4-star and the rest quite low. I mean, the 3.5-star ratings aren't bad, but I was hoping to have a little bit of a more productive and better rating month, but we'll see how we go. We've still got the other half of August left. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. If you've enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments if there are any books that you want to know more about or that you've read too, and I'll be back with my September setup for you all hopefully very soon. Bye everyone.